Okay, well, I'm wondering, I mean, I remember reading in your book a bit about, about calling in, and I'm just thinking one of the dynamics that we've seen a lot in terms of relationships between kids of color is that with teachers, with white teachers in particular, maybe, is when there's aggressions between them, between kids of different racial groups, kids of color, that the white teachers are afraid to sort of intervene. Whereas it's super clear if a white kid's doing it, you intervene on that. But if it's like two black kids calling each other something not nice and racialized, they don't know what to do. And I'm not saying everybody, but we've seen this dynamic over and over. And I wonder just what advice you would have for sort of calling in on those dynamics.
Yeah, that's such a good question. And I've witnessed quite a lot of that this year as well. I think the first thing to do is just to first make sure that you are doing your own personal work. And that can look like a lot of different things. If it's reading books or having conversations with your friends and colleagues, but do you have an understanding of your own identity and also how your identity shows up in your school community and in your classroom? Myself being East Asian, being Korean, when I first started teaching in Los Angeles, I was teaching in South LA, and getting caught up very quickly on the legacy of Korean and Black tension in Los Angeles from the LA riots and Rodney King, knowing that my identity was going to very much play a role in how I was interacting with students, how we talked about history, the interactions I was having with their parents and caregivers. And then moving to another school that was very much very white dominant, knowing the model minority myth, how white parents might see me, talk to me, view me compared to other colleagues of color. Even though I might stay the same, my environment is constantly changing. And so I have to be aware of all of those different dynamics. Your question reminds me of actually something that happened earlier this year. Can I give that scenario?
Yeah.
So this happened in a second grade class. We were talking about Black History Month. There's one girl who is Black and another boy who is biracial, Black and Asian. And those two kids got into, who is Black? The girl said that the biracial boy wasn't. That made him incredibly upset. Then there were conversations about, well, your skin is technically brown. It's not like literally Black. So you're brown, not Black, but identifying as Black is something that's very important to that girl's identity. So she got very upset. And then we had a South Asian student chime in and say, well, my skin color is actually darker than both of yours. So does that mean I'm Black? And so just picture all of this in a class of second graders. And this all took place within a minute and a half span. It happens quickly. And so to first recognize that I am not Black, so I am also not here to tell anyone how they should or should not identify. And in that moment, that's almost like one of the first thing, but one of the few things that I can do. There are conversations that I'm going to have with their other teachers, that I'm going to reach out to their parents and let them know that these conversations are happening, but ultimately to remind them that we're here to uplift and affirm and not police other people's identities. And just try to support them going forwards, knowing that because there was that difference in who we are, there was only so much I could actually do in that situation in a way that I felt wasn't overstepping, boundaries or crossing a line there as well. But it was definitely I had a little bit of a deer in the headlight moment of how am I going to respond to this in a way that is going to make sure that every student here is seen and affirmed, to make sure that I'm not just trying to avoid the conversation. I'm here to affirm my students' identities and also validate their feelings, because there were many feelings across this entire emotional spectrum in that moment.
That's a